French dip might be the best sandwich ever invented. We'll start with a beautiful prime rib. Most French dips use a cheap roast, like top round or eye of round. And you can certainly do that if you choose to make this at home, but my goal here is to make the best tasting French dip I possibly can. So I've chosen a slightly nicer cut of meat for this one. We'll make a dry rub by combining salt, rosemary, thyme, and a neutral oil into a blender and blending until finely mixed. And then, I've never had that happen before. The blender blended itself. At which point I'll toss on some gloves and spread it evenly across the entire prime rib, making sure to really press it in and coat all sides. Once done, move that aside and add down your marrow bone and place the whole tray in the fridge for 24 to 48 hours. After its rest, the final step before baking is to coat the entire thing in black pepper, which we wait to do just before baking because otherwise pepper can become bitter, and then into the oven we go. Once the internal temperature is exactly 118 degrees Fahrenheit or 47 degrees Celsius, transfer the prime rib and bone marrow to another wire rack lined baking sheet, tent it with aluminum foil to let it continue cooking as it rests, and set it to the side. With these hot pan drippings that we have left over, I'll scrape off every last bit of flavor using a wooden spoon, pour it off into a heat-proof container, and place this in the fridge. Now that our beef has fully rested, place it into a dry, very hot cast iron pan. The goal right now is to get a nice flavorful crust on all sides. And when I say all sides, I mean all sides. Once you feel you've achieved a proper level of color, go ahead and transfer it onto the same sheet tray that it came off of. Then carefully scrape everything from the pan just like we did earlier. I say carefully because that oil is very hot, and if your spoon gets caught and then it flicks oil at you, not good. And pour it straight into the same heat-proof container from earlier and give it a stir until that previously separated fat melts again. Then toss this right back in the fridge. And as for our meat, we'll slice it in half. I'm gonna get a sneak peek here. Perfect. Look at all those juices. You see those juices there? And place these face down onto the tray from earlier to catch even more drippings. I'll pour everything that we have right now to the corner so you can see, but I'm saving all the juices that come off the beef so we can use it later in our au jus, that beautiful dipping broth that we'll make that's the other half of the French dip. For now, I'll let this continue dripping off to the side until we're ready to slice. To make our caramelized onions, over medium heat, we'll go into a pan with some butter and oil, then drop in all our onions and give them a generous pinch of salt. Sometimes I like to sprinkle in a little extra pinch of sugar as well, even more caramelization. If you want to make these properly, it takes a full hour over low heat, but I secretly like to turn the heat up to high and just watch them really carefully, especially if I'm in a rush. Either way, whenever you start to see these golden brown bits appear around or under the onions, add a splash of water, then stir and scrape to deglaze. For now, we'll move this off to the side to let it keep cooking while we make our au jus. The foundation of our au jus, which is basically just a rich and flavorful beef broth, is the bone marrow that we roasted earlier. We'll turn our pan to medium heat and add onion, celery, and minced garlic. Stir this for a few minutes until the onions become soft and translucent. And don't forget to keep an eye on your caramelized onions too. Once your onions are softened, transfer the solidified top layer of beef fat to a separate bowl, get rid of that, and pour whatever's left into your pot along with whatever drippings came off the beef. This I'm now going to put in the fridge so I can slice it easier. This pot is now filled with so much flavor. And we'll cook this for a few more minutes before eventually adding in some tomato paste, which we'll stir around until that browns and caramelizes slightly as well as some red wine and some very gelatinous and jiggly homemade beef stock. Because if you're putting in all this effort to make a homemade French dip, you might as well make your own beef stock too, as well as a bay leaf and a few sprigs of thyme. I'll let these both cook down now for about 20 more minutes while we make our fluffy horseradish sauce. Combine sour cream, lemon juice, and lemon zest in a bowl and whisk hard and fast until it eventually becomes light and fluffy like this. Now fold in your horseradish, doing your best to make sure you don't lose all the air you just whipped into the sour cream, and finish with a sprinkle of salt. This sauce doesn't hold for super long, so keep it in the fridge until you're ready to eat it, but try to eat it fairly soon. We are so close to assembling our sandwich, but first we need to finish off our au jus by adding some Worcestershire sauce and freshly cracked black pepper, and believe me when I say, this should be the definition of flavor. To remove all the hard bits from our au jus, I'll strain this through a cheesecloth lined strainer, then add it to a pot to keep it warm, and whisk in a little butter to give it that extra velvety mouthfeel. I know you may not have one of these at home, so you can use a knife for this part, but I'm lucky enough to have this big old meat slicer. I'll load in my cold prime rib, fire it up, and start to slice. I can't stand when I get a steak sandwich and have to awkwardly chew through the meat. So by cutting it super thin like this, we get the beef paper thin and the experience is so much more luxurious. As it should be for a steak sandwich. I've got beef so thin I can see the light through it, and that's what I'm looking for. Let me just do a quick clap clean, and it's just about time to assemble. I'll quickly toast my bread in a dry pan. I'm using a mini French baguette because that's my favorite. Once we get some nice color on there, we'll move it back to our main work surface. Then I'll dip my beef into the hot au jus. I learned this trick from my friend who has a French dip shop, and place it down onto my toasted baguette. Oh my gosh, it looks so good. How much is too much? I don't know when to stop with this. Last but not least, I'll layer it with some of my sugary, glistening caramelized onions and cover it up with a few slices of provolone cheese, and onto a tray and into the oven we go until all that cheese is gooey and melted. Once the sandwich comes out, I move quick. Oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. It is very, very hot. I'm gonna fold all that cheese onto itself so I don't lose any. I'll close it part way and then cut it. Oh man. Then I'll add my au jus to a bowl, nice and hot and steaming. And I feel like this sandwich just doesn't really work without some hot French fries. And don't forget the horseradish sauce. Quick dip, little horseradish. I guess I forgot to mention, this one can get messy. It's cheesy, it's beefy, it's crunchy, it's chewy. I sort of think of this sandwich as the fancy version of grilled cheese and tomato soup. I don't say this about that many foods, but this one's perfect. Oh my gosh, I just realized I have a piece of caramelized onion on my nose.